So I have a theory. Well, it's not exactly a theory. I don't think it's going to happen. Call it more of an inkling, maybe some wishful thinking. I've been following the development of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie for a long time. Now that it's finally happening, Blumhouse seems to be very generous with what they're showing off and what they're doing. Maybe as some sort of olive branch to apologize for how long it's taken, or to continue generating buzz for the movie. It could be both, could be neither. Now, this idea that I have is based on some of the things that I've seen for the movie. But I might as well say it's based on nothing because I don't think this is going to hold up to scrutiny at all. And this is probably not going to age well the moment that we see the first trailer of this movie and see what it's actually going to be about. But here's what I'm thinking. Everyone seems to be thinking this is going to be a straight adaptation of one of the first games in the series with a little bit of lore from the other games thrown in. What if it isn't, though? Scott Cawthon has been pretty open about how much of a stickler he was when he was rejecting movie pitches for this because, let's face it, a lot of them were just not that great. But a lot of them didn't seem to fit the canon well, and they didn't seem to be very respectful with it. Which I kind of get. The game continuity is pretty convoluted at this point. But Scott was very happy with this script because it seemed to tick a lot of his boxes, and that started to get me thinking a little bit. One, the movie is going to be a lot like the comics and the accompanying books of the games. They're going to take place in their own continuity, and they're going to kind of play fast and loose with the events of the games, but in a way that Scott signs off on and is comfortable with. Or, bear with me here, no pun intended, or this is not an adaptation of any of the games at all. It's an original story that takes place inside the timeline of the games. Like Five Nights at Freddy's 1.5 or 2.5 or something. It contributes to the timeline and the storyline of the games as it is without contradicting it, as if Scott had just released a new game that had new pertinent information inside of it. Only it's a movie. I already see problems with this right out of the gate. Matthew Lillard isn't British, for example. But I say all of that to make this point. Why don't a lot of other franchises do this? Instead of straight up adapting your favorite comic or your favorite video game or something and risking it being just a complete mess that no one likes, why don't you work with the creators and then make a story, a movie, that fits inside the timeline and the continuity of the things that already exist? That way it can potentially contribute to the franchise instead of distracting or detracting from it. I want a Zelda movie, but I in no way, shape, or form want an Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild adaptation. It's not possible. Or you could work with Nintendo, say, and find some place on the established Zelda timeline that hasn't been taken advantage of yet, and make a movie there. And good or bad, your movie, your Zelda movie, can sit somewhere in its own little pocket of continuity. You don't want a crappy adaptation of Metroid or Super Metroid or something? Find a place in the Super Metroid timeline and just make a movie and slot it in between one of the two games. It's one of the reasons why I think they keep screwing up the Hellboy movies. Like, instead of adapting beloved storylines from the comics, just make an original case with Hellboy just looking around. He can reference stuff from the comics that is important and part of the canon, but then it can just be in its own little pocket of the continuity that already exists. Like, I don't know, somewhere between Conqueror Worm and Right Hand of Doom, or how, take your pick. I don't know. Just a thought. I thought maybe it could potentially fix a lot of problems. Might cause a lot of others too, now that I think about it. Five Nights at Freddy's movie, yay!